Echo that message here on First Take. Phil Jackson hasn't been content with the amount of times that the Knicks have run the triangle offense, according to league sources saying that some Knicks players have expressed their displeasure over the offense because they feel it doesn't suit their personnel, particularly Derrick Rose, who has traditionally thrived when using pick and roll. On top of that, the Knicks have also put Kurt Rambis in charge of their NBA worst defense. Stephen A., should Melo ask to be traded?
Carmelo Anthony should ask to be traded right now. He should ask to get the hell out of New York City. He has not been perfect. He has not been flawless. I know this. But at the same time, the kind of offensive prowess he has to his game definitely could help some team out, whether it be the Clippers, whether it be the Cleveland Cavaliers or somebody else. Is definitely something that he should strongly consider. The reality of the situation is clear. He's been hoodwinked by Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson sold him on a dream. He came to New York City, talked about being committed to building a championship contender, signed Carmelo Anthony to $122 million, then tanked the season. He hired a rookie coach in Derek Fisher who never coached a peewee team, let alone anybody else, and you made that man your head coach. After you got rid of him, you let Kurt Rambis coach the team. After you denied Kurt Rambis the opportunity to go and get a job that was his in California, okay, then he stays there with you. You hire Jeff Hornacek, and now it appears as if you're undermining Jeff Hornacek because you've got Kurt Rambis manning the defense. It seems a bit chaotic. It seems a bit haphazard. It certainly isn't conducive to the kind of structure we've come accustomed to seeing exist with anything being orchestrated by Phil Jackson. And you know why that is the case, Max? Because Phil Jackson had that level of cohesiveness and structure when he was the coach. As president of basketball operations, he's been pretty close to a damn joke. 49-115 was his record coming into his third year in New York City. The road trips that he takes are all to L.A., where he is half the time any damn way. So that ain't a road trip. As far as I'm concerned, that's a trip home. The man needs to be gone. He needs to go. But since he's hesitant to go, Melo should beat him out the door in New York City. It is time for Melo to get the hell out of New York. It's just not a good situation for him. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to win anything. And the surreal offensive talent that he is, if this man, who's a three-time gold medalist, okay? If he wants real trophies, real rings, not against the likes of Brazil or Argentina or Angola, whoever the hell else they beat in Olympic competition. If he wants a real chip, a real ring, that man needs to get the hell out of New York quick, fast, and in a hurry. Get together with Dolan, get together with Phil Jackson, and get out of town, because this ship that Phil Jackson is running in New York is on its way to nowhere.
Here's the problem with what you're saying. No problem. Of course, Carmelo should ask out of New York. Should have never asked in the first place. Shouldn't have said in the summer before the season started how the Knicks are going to go to the playoffs and how everything's so great. The problem with what you're saying is, you know who else should ask out of New York? Kristaps Porzingis should ask out of New York, who's being used at the 4 instead of the 5, where he has overwhelming advantages in your offense. That's right. Anyone with trade value, anyone who could be a big part of a championship team, should ask out of this Knicks situation, which is clearly dysfunctional. The evidence, as you brought up, is Kurt Rambis. I saw this play out in L.A. before. Phil Jackson calls in Kurt Rambis. You go, uh-oh, this ain't going well. Didn't work then with the Lakers, ain't going to work now with the Knicks. The thing about Carmelo Anthony, Stephen A. Smith, that I think you fail to recognize is, yes, he could be part of a championship team, even though he's not a defender, which is half the game, and he plays an ISO ball that is not really as efficient as the kind of basketball that is played by championship caliber teams. But he's an offensive weapon, a scoring weapon, no question about it. The problem is he's miscast as the best player on a team with championship or even deep playoff run aspirations. He's not that good. He's really good. He's not that good, even on this Knicks team that clearly is not going to challenge the Cavs, let alone, first let's see if they can even get it together to make the playoffs. This team should be running through Porzingis, whose upside is uncertain right now, but at least seems very high, who's still getting better, who needs to be developed the way Karl Anthony Towns would be the focal point of an offense, the way Anthony Davis and Karl Anthony Towns. He's 7'3", who can face up and do all kinds of things. He's a mismatch for everyone in the league, and he's being used improperly. So the idea now that Carmelo should ask out Fine. Where do you want him to go? The Cavs? Could he be the third best player on a championship team? Yes, he can. But he can't be the best. I don't know if he can be the second best. And that's the issue here. He was miscast in that role from the jump.
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody was saying that when he was playing for Mike Woodson and they were winning 54 games, capturing an Atlantic Division crown for the first time in 13 years, and went to the Eastern Conference semifinals before they lost to the Pacers, Paul George, Roy Hibbert, and those boys. First of all, let's make that clear. Secondly,
I was saying that, but okay.
Listen, clearly, secondly, I'm saying to you that when you look at Carmelo Anthony, he's got the talent, Max. Is he a LeBron? Of course not. He's not in that stratosphere, but he's the kind of guy who's good enough where he should not be losing to anyone outside of LeBron. And I'm getting sick and tired of Carmelo Anthony getting a bad rap in this regard. I'm going to remind the world and remind you, who did I cover for the first 10 years of his career? Every day.
Allen Iverson.
It was Allen Iverson. Guess what? You look at Allen Iverson only from an offensive standpoint, because from a defensive standpoint and beyond, all of those other guys were fantastic. Eric Snow, Dikembe Mutombo, George Lynch, Tyrone Hill, Aaron McKee and the boys. I love them like brothers. We'll be friends for life. But offensively, there was one guy and one guy only. It was AI. Allen Iverson. Let me finish. What happened is Larry Brown, in concert with Billy King and Pat Croce, evolved a team around him, recognizing what they had and built it that way. What we have in Phil Jackson is a guy that's saying, damn all of that, I'm not even coaching, but I still want what worked for me as a coach. The hell with what y'all want, and the hell with what works. That makes no sense,
okay, this is what
which is why he's got to get out of town.
This is what
he's got to get out of there.
This is what I'm saying, and it's not a perfect analogy. Neither is Carmelo to AI, but I get your drift. If AI on that team, there was also a guy like a really tall guy who could do Yao Ming, and Porzingis is rarer than Yao Ming. What he can do is different and maybe ultimately more valuable. We don't know. He hasn't developed fully yet. But if he was on that team, if Yao Ming was on that Sixers team, you might also want to figure out, if Iverson was in decline by then and Yao Ming was in his ascending, you might want to figure out how to get the ball to the big guy and use him properly and maybe run the offense through him too.
Max, you're missing my point. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm saying the level of culpability that you're attaching to Melo is unfair. That's Phil Jackson's job.
Carmelo
You've
Anthony,
got to figure that out.
Let's not get this bent. I got nothing against Carmelo. I think Carmelo wants to win. I think the problem with him winning is that expectations by you and others are too high for him when you cast him as the star on a championship team.
No, you got it wrong. I'm not putting the expectations on him. I'm saying because you have him as a team and a franchise, you have an obligation to put the right pieces around him. There were better pieces that Larry Brown and Billy King and Pat Croce could have put around Allen Iverson, but they looked at the tools he had and they said, this is what we need around him for it to work. He's not doing that in New York.
It's a kind of, lack of a better word, a schizophrenic kind of team. You don't know Derrick Rose, how he wants to play versus Carmelo versus Porzingis, and now with Noah, who plays the 4, who plays the 5. I agree with that. However, you and others looked at this team several weeks ago and said they can make the conference finals. So it's not as though people didn't think back then that he assembled a good team.
Wait a minute. I said as starters. And remember, it was a long shot because health was an issue.
Sure,
we know Joakim Noah, Derrick Rose, and Carmelo Anthony wasn't healthy. I said, as starters, we're fine. But, Max, I'm holding out hope. I even acknowledged I was emotional. I said he's put no bench around them, and he's dependent on 3 dudes whose health is compromised. This is a Phil Jackson issue.
This will be ongoing all year, I'm sure.
Yep, and we know the Knicks is personal for you, too. They play the Nets at MSG 7 Eastern on ESPN tonight. Make sure to tune in for that.